Today I want to go over the draft from MKOI G2 Game 1 in the LEC this past weekend. I think this draft is a rare example of having both teams employ standard optimal drafting strategy, which is counter what enemy just picked and pick the next OP. So jumping in, G2 didn't ban the Azir on red side, so that means that MKOI is of course going to scoop that up on B1 perfectly fine. G2 start out with countering what enemy just picked. Tilia is considered a quote-unquote counter. It's not actually a real counter pick, but it does fine in the lane phase because she can usually get pushed in the lane early with her wave clear. But again, countering what enemy just picked and picking the next OP. They're going to go ahead and lock in Xin Zhao here on pick 2. And especially with Pantheon banned, most people pick between Wukong and Xin Zhao for the next highest prio after that. I'm perfectly fine with the Xin Zhao. I think this is a strong rotation from G2. Strong early mid-game, mid-jungle prio, kind of skirmishy, roamy around with the Talia ult like that. But again, MKOI does have Azir, so they want to build a theme around late-game, scaling, teamfight, kind of basic front-to-back style here. And that's exactly what MKOI decided to do. They go ahead and take, of course, the other strong AD skirmisher jungler with the Wukong, again countering what enemy just picked. Yes, Wukong's not an actual counter to Xin Zhao. Only a few of those exist. Things like Kha'Zix do really well into Xin Zhao, but that's not super meta, so we go and see the Wukong as an answer, and then they go and blind pick Sion. This could be pretty risky with a champ like Gwen open, but G2 decide to answer it with Kled instead. So I think that the Sion's going to do just fine here and provide that front line for the Azir. We were talking about how Azir wants to build around a front-to-back teamfight, really basic standard execution in teamfights, and having a Sion being able to soak a lot of frontline damage and buy space for that Azir is going to be really, really helpful. Through the first phase, it's just kind of standard. Yes, we have a Kled pick, which we don't often see, but this is pretty basic draft strategy where you counter what enemy just picked and pick the next OP. Both teams have done this pretty well, and it's pretty even through the first phase, although I'd give MKOI a slight edge. So G2 go ahead and take the Rel on R4. This is interesting because they chose to ban Neeko and Alistar. Alistar is a typical answer into Rel, yes. Neeko is just a strong support at the moment in the current meta. The problem is that Braum is a very, very good champion, especially into what G2 have picked so far. The hard engage of Rel, the dive of Kled, the skirmishing of Xin Zhao is very, very go in heavy. So Braum is always going to be good against those dive champions with his shield block, with his passive, with his ult. He's always going to provide a really solid amount of protection in that sense. So the round out of Sivir Braum is really, really good here. I really like the Sivir pick as well. And then G2 R5 counter with Zeri. Zeri does pretty well into the Sivir because she doesn't really have an ability that can be spell shielded into the Sivir. But I just think that G2 might struggle against the front-to-back teamfight nature of this MKOI draft. They scale insanely well. If they can get to 30 minutes or 3 items, not super far behind, I do believe MKOI will have the advantage in the later game teamfights. That said, it's obviously going to come down to execution, and G2 definitely have the mid-jungle duo advantage here. They also have pretty strong lane dynamics, especially in top. Kled could look to snowball and even roam around with his ult as well. Either way, it's rare to see a draft where both teams executed quite well. It's actually very pleasing to see both teams do that. Props to MKOI and G2 for a very solid Game 1 draft from both teams. Thanks for watching. See you next time.